I'm Megan Hayes, 26, and 5 years ago, my so-called role as the family's quiet peacekeeper, yeah, it blew up in my face. The fragile harmony I worked so hard to keep intact, it shattered into jagged, unforgettable pieces, right at our grandmother's birthday dinner. Leighton, my sister, the one who's always been coated in golden light no matter how ugly her behavior got, stood up, clutched her chest dramatically, and declared that her favorite necklace, Grandma's sapphire pendant, was gone. She pointed at me, dead center of the table. "Megan took it," she said like it was fact, and just like that the room went still. No one even asked me if it was true. Not a, "Did you?" Not a pause, just my mom's icy voice, "How could you?" My dad shook his head like I was a bad investment that finally tanked, and Leighton, she didn't even look guilty, she just watched me squirm. They told me to leave. Right there. No bags, no chance to explain. Just go. And I did. I didn't cry, not in front of them, but something inside me cracked so deeply that night, I felt hollow for months. The worst part? Not that they didn't believe me, but that they didn't want to believe me, because if the golden child pointed, everyone followed. That dinner destroyed more than my place at the table. It erased the years I'd spent being the one who folded quietly, who didn't complain when Leighton's drama sucked all the air out of the room, who stayed up editing college essays or designing party invitations, just to be useful. That night told me I never mattered. Not really, not unless I was making them feel better about themselves. But that girl they threw out, she didn't stay gone, she transformed. So, if you've ever been the one no one sticks up for, if you've ever been shoved out of your own family by lies they chose to believe, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because what I did next, it wasn't revenge. It was a rebirth. And you wouldn't believe what happened when that necklace finally showed up in the most ridiculous way possible. I think I always knew I was the spare. Not in the dramatic, I'm adopted kind of way, just in the quiet, everyday ways that carved deep. Leighton was the star, the sparkler everyone clapped for. Her ballet recitals were front-page events in our family group chat. Her college acceptance to some overpriced, underperforming school? My parents threw a backyard party with twinkly lights and a freaking ice sculpture of the school mascot. When I got into a top design institute on scholarship, my mom said, "That's cute, are you still doing your little art thing?" My dad asked if I was planning to do real work after graduation, and it wasn't just once, it was always. Like the time I won a regional award for a furniture design project. I was 16. I stayed up for weeks, sketching on napkins, gluing models together with blistered fingers. They never came to the award ceremony. That same night, Leighton's cheer squad got third place at a local invitational. Guess who got balloons? It didn't matter how quietly I showed up or how hard I tried to fit into the role of the good daughter who doesn't make waves. I was the one who held the camera, not the one in the photo. I was the peacekeeper, the fixer. The one who covered for Leighton when she blew curfew or crashed Mom's car or accidentally sent a flirty text to our cousin's fiancé. They thanked me, sure, when it was convenient. But real love? Real belonging? That was reserved. Even Grandma, sweet as she was, played favorites. She always handed Leighton her heirlooms early, so you'll get them before Megan tries to modernize them. That necklace Leighton accused me of stealing? Grandma had promised it to her. I knew better than to touch it. That's what stung the most. They knew me well enough to use me, but not well enough to trust me. It took me years to understand what was happening. When you grow up invisible, you don't notice the glass walls until you start to push against them. Until you start asking, why not me? Why not ever me? The truth was, I could have cured cancer, and they still would have called Leighton to celebrate. So when that night happened, the accusation, the exile, I wasn't just shocked, I was exposed. Like all the things I'd told myself to cope, they do love me in their own way, Leighton's just going through stuff, I'm not doing this for praise, all those little lies melted into the air, and what was left behind? Silence, empty chair, no one running after me, no one. It started with a sketchbook and a futon. I had nowhere to go after they kicked me out, no money, no plan, just a backpack, my worn portfolio, and the ache of betrayal thudding in my chest like a second heartbeat. My friend Cam let me crash on her couch for what was supposed to be a few nights. It turned into almost a year. I slept beneath a leaky window, surrounded by thrifted lamps and half-built IKEA furniture, and every night I drew like my life depended on it. Because it did. No more waiting to be chosen, no more shrinking myself for a seat at their table. I had nothing left to lose, and for the first time in my life, that felt like freedom. I took on odd design gigs, a logo for a bakery, a website for a dog groomer. One client led to another, and soon I had a rhythm. Coffee in the morning, deep focus till midnight, rinse, repeat. I registered a business under a pseudonym, Hollow Studio, because that's how I felt at the time. Empty, echoing, waiting to be filled with something that was mine. I didn't tell anyone. Not Cam, not old classmates. I didn't post about it. It was just mine. Something I could build without anyone trying to shrink it, own it, or compare it to Leighton's latest promotion post. There were weeks I couldn't afford proper meals. I ate rice and eggs like it was gourmet. I taught myself code at 3 a.m., redesigned e-commerce sites for cheap, and pitched brands I had no business reaching out to. But I got in. Slowly. I was hustling so hard I didn't notice when the work turned good. Like really good. A boutique in Portland reposted one of my branding packages. That post turned into 3 commissions. A fashion startup used my design in a national campaign. My inbox flooded. I couldn't keep up. That's when I knew I needed to grow it. I found a quiet corner of a co-working space and rented it by the hour. I built a team. 2 freelancers at first, both women who knew the sting of being underestimated. We clicked. We worked fast. We supported each other like no one had ever supported me growing up. Eventually, Hollow Studio wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And the irony? Every time someone complimented my work, they'd say the same thing. This feels personal. Like someone really listened. Because I did. Because I always had. The things that made me the family doormat, being observant, quiet, precise, became my superpowers. I channeled years of being talked over into fonts that screamed identity. I poured my silence into color palettes that made clients cry. I took all the weight they threw on me and I turned it into gold. They never saw it, they didn't know. Because I didn't need them to. 5 years. That's how long it had been since the night they threw me out like expired milk. And then, out of nowhere, I got the text. Family dinner this Saturday, Grandma would have wanted it, hope you can come, sent by my mother. No apology. No. We miss you. Just an obligation, wrapped in guilt, like always. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before locking my phone and dropping it on the kitchen counter like it was contagious. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to scream. But a smaller, quieter part, the part still bandaged from that night, whispered, just go. Just once. Just to see. Not because I wanted their forgiveness. I didn't. Not anymore. I had outgrown that need like a coat I used to think kept me warm. I didn't even want their attention. What I wanted was clarity. One last time, on my terms. It also happened to be the night before my biggest deal yet. A global lifestyle brand, one of those sleek, eco-chic empires, was about to license our entire visual identity package for their rebrand. The money would change everything. A full-time team, our own studio, benefits, mentorship programs, maybe even an office dog. The contract had been reviewed, the wire transfer lined up. I was scheduled to sign the next morning. And no one at that table would have any idea. It almost made me laugh. I stood in front of my mirror that Saturday night smoothing down a blazer I designed myself, tailored sharp, with quiet lines and hidden strength. Not flashy, just enough to feel like armor. I looked good, strong, different. Not that they'd notice. They never saw the real me anyway. Cam watched me from the doorway, arms crossed, her brows doing that thing they do when she's both skeptical and protective. You sure about this? I shrugged, tucking my lip gloss into my clutch. No, but I think I need to see it through. Want me to fake a car accident halfway through so you can leave dramatically? I smiled, tempting. She grabbed my hand. Just remember who you are now, and don't let them take it from you again. And that was the thing. They couldn't. Not anymore. The girl who cried herself to sleep in a stranger's apartment, she had built a business from dust. She had clients waiting on her designs, a bank account she earned dollar by dollar, and a team that respected her. I didn't need their dinner. I didn't need their nod. But I did need to walk through that door. Not as the daughter they discarded, but as the woman they never bothered to know. So I grabbed my coat, my keys, and my silence, and I went. Their house hadn't changed. Same perfect hedges, same wreath on the door that Leighton had picked out 2 autumns ago, even the same chipped planter by the steps that no one ever bothered to fix. I stood there for a second, just breathing, reminding myself this wasn't home. Not anymore. The door opened before I knocked. "Oh," my mother said, blinking at me like I was a delivery she forgot she ordered. "You came," I smiled tightly. "You invited me." She stepped aside, already turning. No hug, no warmth. I walked into the familiar scent of roasted vegetables and lemon cleaner, both trying too hard. The dining room was set for 7, 2 more than usual. Leighton was already at the table, glass of red in hand, laughing at something my father said. Then she saw me, and her whole face shifted. Not shock, not guilt, something closer to amusement. "Well, look who the wind dragged in," she said, standing up with a flourish like this was her stage. "I told him you'd show." I gave her a nod. "Still the family psychic, I see." She smirked, stepping closer, leaning in like we were best friends sharing a secret. "You look polished. Still doing that design hobby?" I smiled without teeth. "You mean the company I run?" "Yeah, still doing that." Her eyes flicked over my blazer, then back to her wine like it bored her. "Cute." I sat at the far end of the table, the seat I used to fight for as a kid. Now it just felt strategic, distance. My dad gave me a stiff nod, already cutting his steak. My aunt, visiting from Charleston, offered a forced, "Long time, Meg." My cousin didn't even look up from her phone. And then the questions started, not curious questions, loaded ones. "So no husband yet? Still renting? Oh, do you do like Etsy?" I answered when I wanted to, deflected when I didn't. Every word felt like a test, every silence a trap. I watched Leighton bask in the glow of their admiration, telling stories about her marketing job like she'd discovered fire. When she mentioned some influencer collab, everyone gasped like it was a Nobel Prize. I sipped my water and waited. Because I wasn't here to perform. They didn't ask how I'd been. Not really. No one mentioned the last 5 years. It was like they were trying to pretend the accusation, the exile, the silence, it never happened. Like I'd taken a really long vacation and finally decided to come home. But I hadn't. I was just visiting the ruins. And the thing about ruins, they show you what once stood and what was never built right to begin with. It happened over dessert. We were all sitting there, half polite smiles frozen in place, while my mother brought out a pie she clearly hadn't baked herself. Leighton was swirling her wine again, telling a long, meandering story about a conference in Miami, pausing just enough to let everyone tell her how fabulous she sounded. Then the air shifted. I felt it before it happened, the way the room got just a bit too quiet, like a stage being reset. My father cleared his throat. That sound always meant something official was coming. He set down his fork and looked straight at me for the first time that night. "Megan," he said in that rehearsed tone he used when delivering bad news at work, "your mother and I think it's time we stop pretending." I blinked. "Pretending what?" "That things are fine. That everything's just going to go back to the way it was." My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression flat. "I never said it would." My mother chimed in, her voice clipped. "You've made your choices. You left." "Let's not rewrite history," I said calmly. "You told me to go." She waved a hand like the details bored her. "It's been years. We've all moved on. And honestly, the tension you bring into this house just isn't something we want to keep inviting in." There it was. Leighton didn't even flinch. She took another sip of wine and stared at the wall like she'd already moved on to her next thought. "So what are you saying?" I asked, my voice low. My dad folded his hands. "We're saying, maybe it's better if you stop coming around. For good. It's not personal." I almost laughed. Not personal? Being erased from your own family was pretty damn personal. No one spoke. No one defended me. Not Aunt Cheryl, not Cousin Mads, not even the dog, who in a final betrayal had curled up beside Leighton like she was his queen. I stared at them. At their stiff, pleased faces, their sense of righteousness wrapped in passive-aggressive bows. And I realized something. They wanted to disown me. It gave them closure. It meant they never had to admit they were wrong, that they'd cast me out over a lie, and instead of facing that truth, they were going to double down and pretend I was always the problem. I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs scraped against the hardwood, loud and awkward. No one stopped me. No one asked me to stay. And that silence? That was the answer I didn't know I still needed. I stood, straightened my blazer, and looked right at my mother. Thanks for the pie. Then I walked out the same way I had 5 years ago, except this time, I didn't look back. My phone buzzed just as I reached the edge of the driveway. I almost didn't look. I figured it was Cam, checking in, maybe already drafting my escape story. But it wasn't her, it was Leighton. I stared at the screen, the name glowing in the dark like a bad omen. Then the message came through. Where are you? I need to talk. It's important. I should have deleted it, blocked her. But I didn't. Curiosity, or maybe years of unfinished wounds, made me pause. Before I could decide, the phone rang. Her name again. I answered. What? Her voice was breathless, not in a dramatic way but in a way I didn't recognize. Unrehearsed, off balance. Megan, it wasn't you, the necklace, they found it. Silence. I stopped walking. What? I asked, flatly. It was behind the bathroom wall. The plumber was replacing some old pipes and the necklace must have slipped through the vent or something. It was never stolen. I didn't speak. She kept going. I told them. Dad's freaking out. Mom's acting like nothing happened. But I just thought you should know. She faltered. I'm sorry. I let that sit there. You're sorry now? I asked. After 5 years? I didn't think they'd believe me, she whispered. I was mad at you, and I made it up. But then they ran with it, and I couldn't stop it. She sounded like she expected pity. Maybe even forgiveness. All I felt was calm. Of course it wasn't me. I'd known that every day since they cast me out, but hearing it from her mouth, hearing the truth finally claw its way into daylight, it wasn't vindication. It was confirmation of something I'd already outgrown. Do they want me to come back now? I asked, even though I already knew. She was quiet. Then, yes, Mom said it was all a misunderstanding. Dad wants to move forward. Of course they do. They want to fix things. I laughed. Just once. No, Leighton, they want to forget things. That's different. Megan, please. But I was done. I'd spent 5 years proving myself to a world that never noticed I'd been exiled. I'd built something beautiful from the wreckage. And now that the truth was out, not because they searched for it but because a plumber stumbled across it, they wanted to reset the board? No. The call didn't bring relief. It didn't even bring anger. It brought clarity. They hadn't changed, they just got caught. I ended the call without saying goodbye, and for the first time in years, I felt weightless. The next day my inbox pinged with a calendar invite. Sunday brunch, family reconciliation. Location their backyard, catered, casual attire. I stared at it for a full minute before hitting decline. Then came the texts, one from my mom. Let's start fresh, you're always welcome here. From my dad, enough pain has passed, let's move on. Even Aunt Cheryl chimed in, no family's perfect, sweetie. Be the bigger person. Not a single person used the words I'm sorry. Not one. They were all treating it like a clerical error, as if 5 years of silence, slander and abandonment could be scrubbed clean now that the necklace was back in its little velvet box. No mention of how they watched me sob, how they threw me out like trash, just empty invitations to pick up the broken pieces and smile for the photo. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I pulled up my calendar and walked into the biggest meeting of my career. The client's team was already waiting. 5 people on video, a few of them faces I'd admired for years. I signed the final contract as the lead creative behind the rebrand of a company worth more than all my relatives' collective egos combined. When it was done, I muted my mic and exhaled. Cam, who had been quietly watching from the corner with a bottle of champagne she wasn't allowed to open yet, raised her eyebrows. You gonna tell them? I nodded. I think it's time. I dressed carefully. Nothing too sharp, nothing too soft, no need to prove anything. I walked into my parents' house like it was a boardroom, quiet, confident, uninvited. They were all there, mid-mimosa. Leighton's smile froze the second she saw me. I didn't sit. I got your texts, I said. And your brunch invite. My mother stood. We're so glad you came. I'm not here to rejoin the family, I'm here to tell you something. My father's jaw tightened. You don't need to make a scene. I'm not. I'm giving you facts. That necklace? It never mattered. The lie? That's what mattered. The choice you all made, to believe the worst about me, without a second thought. No one spoke. I reached into my bag and pulled out a printout of the press release that had gone live that morning. Hollow Studio announces multi-million-dollar creative partnership. Leighton read it. Her mouth twitched. You never even asked what I've been doing all this time, I said. But I've been building. Without you. Without your support. Without your belief. And I've done more with nothing than I ever could have done with your conditional love. My mother took a step forward. Megan, we were wrong. Let's just move on. No, I cut in. You don't get access to me now, not because I'm successful, not because you're embarrassed. You disowned me. That decision has consequences. I paused, looked at each of them, their stunned, shrinking faces. I'm not the girl you cast out. And then I turned, walked away. This time, the door closed behind me. I didn't cry on the drive home, not because I wasn't emotional, but because I didn't need to grieve this time. There was nothing left to mourn. That family, that life, that hope, they were already ghosts. All I did was finally stop pretending they might come back. When I walked through the door of my apartment, Cam was waiting, barefoot in sweats, a glass of wine in each hand. So, she asked, eyes wide. I held up the press release with a grin. I torched the whole brunch. She whooped, handed me the wine, and hugged me like someone who never once doubted me. It hit me in waves that this was what love actually looked like. No conditions, no power games, just real, warm, soul-safe presence. Later that night, a few of our crew came over. Maddie, the copywriter with a pirate's mouth and a heart of gold. Theo, the quiet UX genius who'd once designed an entire site just to cheer me up. Jamie, the intern turned freelancer who now called me boss with actual pride in his voice. We ate Thai food out of cartons, sprawled on pillows, Spotify humming in the background. No one asked invasive questions. No one made snide comments masked as concern. They just listened as I told them about the brunch, nodding in all the right places, laughing in others. At one point, Jamie leaned forward. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were intimidating. I raised an eyebrow. Me? He nodded. You just had this calm, like you didn't need to prove anything. Like you already knew who you were. I blinked. That wasn't how I saw myself. Not back then, but maybe that's what healing had done, quietly, over years. It replaced the raw desperation to be seen with a steady knowing that I saw myself. And I liked what I saw. After everyone left, I curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath me, Cam already snoring softly in the chair across the room. And I thought, this is family. Not the ones who share your blood, the ones who share your truth. The next morning my phone rang 6 times. I let it. My father, my mother, a couple from Layton, each more frantic than the last. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I didn't need to. I knew what they'd say. Some mix of surprise, justification, emotional bribery. A last-ditch effort to lasso me back into the narrative where I played the quiet, forgiving daughter who came home once the misunderstanding was cleared up. But I wasn't that girl anymore, and I wasn't going back. Still, I knew I had to respond. Not for them, but for me, to draw the final line in ink. So I sat at my desk, opened a blank email, and typed slowly, carefully. Every sentence was a boundary carved in steel. Dear family, I've received your calls and messages. I understand that the discovery of the necklace has been surprising. I am not interested in reconciliation. I want to be clear. Your belief in Layton's lie, and your eagerness to abandon me without pause caused irreversible harm. This is not about a piece of jewelry, it is about trusting in your refusal to question your own bias. I have rebuilt my life. I'm proud of who I've become, and I do not wish to re-engage with people who treated me as disposable. Do not contact me again unless it is to offer a sincere, complete, and unqualified apology. Even then, I reserve the right to protect my peace. Sincerely, Megan. I reread it once. Then I hit send, no hesitation, no second guessing. Then I blocked their numbers, every single one. Even Aunt Cheryl, even Layton. I didn't do it in anger, I did it in peace. Like locking the door of a house I'd already moved out of, long ago. I wasn't interested in whether they felt guilty. I wasn't invested in whether they missed me. I wasn't performing closure for their comfort. I was just done. That afternoon, I bought myself flowers. Not as a celebration, just as a statement. You are worthy of nice things, Megan. You always were. I put them on my windowsill and made tea. Read a little, took a nap, woke up to sunlight slanting through the blinds and the sound of birds outside, and nothing else. No tension, no anxiety, just quiet. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. They keep the rot out so that what's healthy can breathe. I wasn't isolated. I was safe, and I had built that safety myself. The rebrand launched on a Thursday. By Friday we were everywhere. magazines, tech blogs, Instagram reels, dissecting every design element like it was art history. Someone even stitched a TikTok showing my old logo side by side with our new clients and whisper screamed, "Who is Hollow Studio and where have they been hiding?" It was surreal. My name wasn't on the homepage. That was intentional. I didn't need the spotlight. I just wanted the work to shine. But those who knew, knew. DMs flooded in from past professors, old classmates, even clients who used to ask if I had a real job. Every message was another crack in the glass ceiling I'd quietly built beneath me. And I wasn't just breaking through, I was walking out with grace. But the best part? What I did next. I went to the county clerk's office and filed a name change. Not for myself, but for my business. Hayes and Hollow, a merging of past and present, a reclaiming. Hayes, the name they gave me, the name they tried to stain with shame and silence. Hollow, the space I built when they left me with nothing. Now it was ours. Whole, rooted, unshakable. I took it a step further. I created the Ruth Hayes Fellowship, named after my grandmother. Not because she was perfect, she wasn't. But she was the only one who gave me crayons instead of correction, who let me draw on her dining room napkins while everyone else told me to sit still. Maybe she didn't always get it right, but she saw a flicker of something in me. The fellowship is for women like I was at 21. Undervalued, unchosen, quietly brilliant. It covers tuition for design programs, includes mentorship, and guarantees a paid internship with us. When we announced it, one of the first applicants wrote, "Thank you for seeing people like me before the world does." I cried reading that, because for so long I was desperate to be seen, to be known, to be enough. But now I was the one holding the light, and I knew exactly where to shine it. It was a Tuesday morning when I felt it, this subtle, unfamiliar stillness, no texts buzzing with guilt, no meetings looming over me like proof I belonged. Just me, barefoot in the studio I built, sunlight flooding the whitewashed floors, the faint hum of the coffee machine warming up behind me. I was designing a mood board for a new client when it hit me. Peace. Not the kind that arrives with fireworks or applause. The quiet kind. The kind you don't notice at first because it's not shouting, it's letting you breathe. I sat back in my chair, looked around the room, prints on the wall, swatches pinned to corkboard, a Polaroid of my team from last month's retreat, arms wrapped around each other like a net that never drops you. Everything here was chosen. None of it was handed to me. And that made it real. I used to think peace would come when they said sorry. When they finally saw me, acknowledged the pain, took responsibility. But peace didn't come from them. It came the moment I realized I didn't need them to say a word for me to heal. The girl who once begged for scraps of validation now had a waiting list of clients who trusted her vision. She had a team that looked to her with respect. She had a community, built, not inherited. She had herself. That morning, I lit a candle, jasmine and cedar, comfort and clarity. I played my favorite playlist and let it fill the space with every note that had once carried me through dark nights. And I stood at the window with my coffee, watching the city move, feeling no urgency to chase anything. Because I wasn't behind, I wasn't broken. I was home. And not the kind you're born into. The kind you build. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do, and watched the people who should have known you best turn away? It's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't make headlines. A quiet exile. A betrayal without bruises. And if you've lived it, you know. The hardest part isn't surviving the rejection. It's choosing to keep growing anyway. If my story reminded you of your own, if you've ever felt discarded, overlooked, or erased, know this. You are not alone. And more importantly, you are not broken. You don't need a family's apology to claim your worth. You don't need permission to begin again, and you absolutely don't need to shrink just because they couldn't see you. So I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, what did you build after they gave up on you? What did you reclaim, discover, or finally say yes to after they told you no? And if this story gave you even 1 ounce of strength, please, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that their story isn't over just because one chapter ended badly. Let them know. You don't have to go back to being the person they tolerated. You get to become the person you respect. The girl they threw away? She's not coming back. The woman who replaced her? She's unstoppable.